I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you have been tasked with fixing a massive, unbelievably complex machine.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we are talking gears, wires, moving parts, stretching literally as far as the eye can see, just humming and vibrating.
Sounds intimidating.
Right. Now imagine you are trying to repair this machine, to make it run better, maybe stop it from breaking down every few years. But you are doing all of this without ever actually looking at its motor.
You're just ignoring the engine entirely.
Exactly. You are just polishing the gears on the outside. Maybe you are, I don't know, replacing a belt here or there. But you completely ignore the actual engine block that powers the entire system.
Which is obviously a terrible way to fix a machine.
It is. And in this scenario, that motor, that engine block, is the human brain and the machine itself. That is human civilization.
It is, it's a really startling way to frame it because it reveals this massive blind spot in how we typically operate.
Yeah, completely.
Like, historically, if you look at how we attempt to understand or improve our world, we almost exclusively focus on the outward symptoms. We analyze the gears.
We obsess over them, really.
We do. We obsess over political movements, economic policies, social friction. But we very rarely examine the internal biological mechanics that are actually driving all of those external events.
Which brings us to the core of what we are unpacking today. Because if you want to fix human civilization, you have to open the hood and look at that biological motor.
You have to.
And that is the massive, slightly terrifying premise of a 100-part investigative project we are pulling apart for you today. It's called The Time Traveler's Paradox.
It's quite a title.
It really is. And this is a dense stack of sources. It seamlessly blends, history, biology, and philosophy. But before we get into the weeds, I think we need to set the table for you listening right now.
Yeah. Setting expectations is key here.
Right. This deep dive is not going to hand you a neat set of easy answers.
Far from it, actually. The goal here is to equip you with better questions.
Yes, exactly.
This project is essentially an invitation to challenge your own reality. It asks you to examine the structural assumptions you didn't even know you were making.
Which is hard to do.
It is very hard. And to do that, we have to look at the instrument you actually use to perceive reality in the first place.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the way this project tries to deconstruct human civilization is deeply tied to how it asks you to engage with the material.
The medium itself is part of the message.
Right. And it starts with a very deliberate choice of medium. This project is entirely audio.
Which is fascinating.
There are no graphics, no flashy animations, no constant visual stimulation, which, in a world where every screen is just screaming for our eyeballs, is a huge choice.
It's a very bold choice.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
Aren't we largely visual learners by nature? Doesn't a chart or an animation explain complex biological concepts significantly faster than just listening to a voice can?
Well, a chart might transfer a data point faster, sure. But it doesn't necessarily create deeper comprehension.
Oh, really? How so?
The creators of this project argue that visual media is incredibly powerful, but it comes with a hidden cost. It dictates your reality.
Dictates it?
Yeah. When you watch a high-production video, it commands your visual cortex. It tells you exactly what to see, what color it is, how it moves. You become a passive receiver of information.
You're just sitting back and letting it wash over you.
Exactly. Audio, on the other hand, leaves empty space. A voice introduces an idea, and then there's a pause.
Like right now.
Right. And that absence of visual input forces your own mind to step in and cognitively construct the scene.
So you have to do the work.
You do.
Yes.
It changes you from a passive watcher into an active participant. You are required to physically render the concepts in your own mind.
So the act of listening actually forces the brain to do some of the heavy lifting.
Exactly. It's a workout.
That active participation makes a lot of sense because human history already has, millions of accounts of what happened.
We have libraries full of them.
Right. Endless textbooks about the wars, the economic crises, the rise and fall of empires, the scientific discoveries. But this project is asking why they happen.
Getting to the root of it.
It's looking for the human nervous system behind every political decision, every act of greed, or even every moment of immense kindness.
Yeah, and if we pull back and look at the architecture of human knowledge, it is like a massive jigsaw puzzle scattered on a table.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right, so economics, politics, sociology, evolutionary biology, these are all individual puzzle pieces.
Okay.
You can pick up the economics piece and study its texture, its shape, its color. You can become an absolute expert on that one piece.
But it's just one piece.
Exactly. Until you place it beside the others, you simply do not know what picture it belongs to. The argument here is that the puzzle board itself, the foundational layer connecting all these disparate fields, is neuroscience.
It's like trying to understand why a movie is a masterpiece by only looking at the costume design.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Like you could write a whole dissertation on the fabrics used, right?
Yeah.
But you need the script, the lighting, and the directing to see the whole picture. If you just stare at the costumes, you're missing the actual narrative.
Because behind every human endeavor, every costume design, every economic theory, every political revolution is a human brain attempting to process the world.
A physical, biological brain.
Yes. Whether we are looking at tribalism, mass cooperation, or the willingness to question authority, there is a literal biological system at work.
Amygdala's firing and all that.
Exactly. We are talking about amygdalas firing, prefrontal cortices calculating, intricate neural networks, passing electrical signals.
It's all physical.
It is. And the profound realization we have to grapple with here is that we're using the brain to study the brain.
Oh, man.
Right. The instrument investigating the universe is itself a part of the universe.
Which is a sentence that just kind of breaks your brain a little bit when you really sit with it.
It definitely does.
We are using our biological motor to try and understand how our biological motor works.
A weird loop to be stuck in.
But if the brain is the engine of civilization, we really need to look under the hood to see how it operates. And the sources point out that this engine has a massive fundamental problem that dictates pretty much all of human behavior.
Yes, a very specific problem.
It has a severe energy problem.
The biological cost of thinking is just staggering when you look at the raw math.
Okay, weigh the math on me.
So the human brain makes up only about 2% of our total body weight.
2%, tiny.
Very small. Yet it consumes roughly 20% of our body's resting energy.
Like 20%. Just sitting there.
To keep the lights on, we are talking about the physical currency of the body here, which is glucose and oxygen.
That's a huge drain.
It is. Every single time a neuron fires, it has to pump ions across its cell membrane. And that requires a molecule called ATP, which is the basic energy unit of the cell.
Okay, biology class coming back to me now.
Right. So multiply that tiny action by 86 billion neurons forming trillions of connections.
Wow.
Your skull is essentially housing a biological supercomputer that is constantly running hot.
So it's an energy hog.
Massive energy hog. And because of this enormous, relentless demand, the brain had to evolve to be ruthlessly efficient.
It had to adapt to survive.
Exactly. It simply cannot afford to reinvent the wheel for every single action or decision.
So what does it do? Like, how does it cut corners to save that energy?
Well, it relies heavily on a primitive structure deep within the brain called the basal ganglia.
Basal ganglia, got it.
You can think of the basal ganglia like a macro on a computer.
Okay, a macro.
Yeah, so if you have a sequence of actions you perform every single day on your computer, you can record that sequence into a macro. Next time, you just press one button and the computer executes the whole sequence with almost zero processing power.
It just runs automatically.
Exactly. The basal ganglia does this for human behavior. It bundles familiar behaviors, routines, cognitive habits, and it just puts us on autopilot.
Okay, wait. Let me stop you there because I want to make sure I'm understanding the implication of this. Are you telling me that when I am just blindly accepting a familiar routine, or maybe I'm nodding along to a political idea I've heard 1,000 times without actually questioning it,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily because I'm intellectually lazy. You're saying my brain is literally biologically trying to save calories.
That is exactly the mechanism at play.
That is wild.
To override that basal ganglia autopilot, you have to engage a different part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex.
Okay, where is that?
That is the area right behind your forehead. And it serves as the seat of critical thinking, logic, deliberate engagement.
The heavy lifter.
Right. But engaging the prefrontal cortex is like booting up a high-fidelity physics simulator.
It takes a ton of juice.
A massive spike in energy is required to project future scenarios,
Right.
weigh abstract variables, hold conflicting ideas in working memory.
That sounds exhausting.
It biologically is.
Yeah.
So your brain, acting as a survival mechanism designed to prevent you from starving to death, actively avoids turning on that simulator unless absolutely necessary.
So it defaults to the easy route.
It inherently chooses the path of least resistance.
Okay, so it's a biological shortcut. But wait, if my brain is on autopilot just to save energy, what happens when I'm born into an incredibly complex pre-existing system?
That is the big question.
Like, say I am born into modern capitalism or a specific geographic religion or, a certain class structure. Does my brain just accept all of that massive complexity just to save calories?
It absolutely does. And this is where the biological survival mechanism becomes a really dangerous cognitive trap.
Because we just accept it as normal.
Exactly. Because familiarity requires so much less energy to process, we naturally gravitate toward it. But over time, the brain begins to mistake the familiar for the true.
Oh, that's a huge distinction, familiar versus true.
We start to believe that just because we've done something a certain way for a long time or because society has been structured a certain way for centuries, it must be the objectively correct way to live.
The sources refer to this as the fish and water syndrome, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
A fish does not recognize the water it swims in because it has never experienced a single moment outside of it.
It doesn't even know it's wet.
Right. The water is just the default state of reality.
Yeah.
Humans operate the exact same way with human civilization.
We just swim in it.
We inherit massive, overarching systems, languages, cultural traditions, economic paradigms, ideas about what constitutes success and failure.
And we get all this when we're super young.
That's the key. We inherit all of these systems when we are toddlers, long before our prefrontal cortex is developed enough to run that high-energy simulator and actually question them.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's like moving into a fully furnished house that was built by your great-grandparents.
Oh, I love this. Tell me more.
You live there so long, surrounded by all of their antique furniture, their wallpaper, their weird layout choices, that you eventually trick yourself into believing you picked out that hideous floral couch in the living room yourself.
Yes.
You completely forget that you just inherited it. You defend the couch as if it represents your personal taste, when really it was just there when you arrived.
That analogy perfectly captures the trap of inherited systems. You did not choose the couch. But because your basal ganglia has processed the sight of it every single day of your life, it requires zero energy to accept it.
It just feels natural.
It feels natural, exactly. But there is a profound fundamental difference between something being biologically natural and something merely becoming cognitively familiar.
We confuse the two all the time.
We internalize these inherited systems so deeply that we forget they're just assumptions. They are not laws of physics.
Right.
They were made up by human minds in specific historical contexts, operating under specific environmental pressures that might not even exist anymore.
Which bridges us right into the blank slate concept that the project heavily leans on.
A very controversial concept for some.
It is, this idea that humans are highly adaptable. But I hear people push back on this all the time.
Oh, constantly.
Whenever there is a massive societal flaw, say institutional corruption or extreme wealth inequality or tribal violence, someone will inevitably shrug and say, well, what are you going to do? Greed and tribalism are just human nature.
And this project argues that calling every repeated societal behavior human nature is an intellectually bankrupt shortcut.
Ouch! But true.
We are not born with fixed ideologies hardwired into our DNA. Our behavior is remarkably plastic.
We can change.
We are heavily shaped by our environment, by the biological incentives we are presented with, and by social expectations.
So just because it's old doesn't make it right.
Just because a belief has existed for 1,000 years, or just because a powerful authority figure tells you that the current system is the only way things can be, does not make it true.
And it certainly does not make it inevitable.
Exactly. Humans adapt to the container they are poured into.
But that creates a really daunting problem for us, doesn't it?
It certainly presents a challenge.
If we are living in this pre-furnished house of inherited beliefs, and our brains are literally biologically wired to avoid the calorie burn required to question those beliefs, how do we ever change civilization for the better?
How do we get out of the loop?
Yeah, how do we break the biological loop?
We have to introduce friction.
Such
A very specific, deliberate type of mental friction. If we want to alter the trajectory of civilization, we have to interrupt those established low-energy neural pathways.
We have to force the brain to work.
We have to force the basal ganglia to hand the steering wheel back over to the prefrontal cortex.
And how do we do that?
We do that by cultivating healthy skepticism and relentless curiosity.
Now, when we say skepticism, I want to clarify how the sources define this because they aren't talking about cynical skepticism.
No, not at all.
It's not just crossing your arms, refusing to believe anything, and deciding everyone is a liar.
Right, because cynicism is just another low-energy shortcut.
Is it?
Yeah. Think about it. It takes 0 calories to say everything is fake and just disengage.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that. Cynicism is lazy.
It is biologically lazy.
Mm.
Healthy skepticism, on the other hand, requires effort. It is the willingness to pause the autopilot and ask a very uncomfortable question.
Which is?
I might be wrong about this. What is the actual evidence?
That takes a lot of humility.
It is the adoption of the scientific attitude in your daily life. You test claims, you actively look for disconfirming evidence, you allow for nuance, and you correct your mental models when reality proves you wrong.
Reality, not authority, has the final word.
Exactly.
That phrasing really stuck out to me in the source material. Reality does not care about your social status.
No, it doesn't.
It does not care how much money you have, and it doesn't care how many followers agree with you on the internet.
Gravity works the same for everyone.
Right. And what's wild is that the project explicitly tells listeners to apply this healthy skepticism to the hosts themselves.
Which is so refreshing.
The creators are literally telling you, the listener, to question their claims, to demand evidence for their theories. It completely dismantles that typical guru-follower dynamic we see so often today.
It has to, otherwise it would just be replacing one inherited floral couch with another.
Exactly. Just swapping gurus.
The ultimate goal of this project is to carve out a space for deep thought in a world that seems structurally designed to prevent it.
Everything is so fast now.
We live in an information ecosystem that moves way too fast. We react to endless outrage, we scan a headline and immediately form a hardened opinion, all before we've actually taken the time to engage the prefrontal cortex and understand the underlying mechanisms.
We just hit retweet and move on.
We spend so much energy defending our familiar positions that we never stop to ask if our positions are actually correct.
So what does this all mean? We have all this biology working against us. We have an environment designed to distract us. What is the practical application of this knowledge?
It means we have to consciously hit the brakes.
Just slow down.
We have to pause the endless noise of modern life to allow curiosity to exist, and this is perhaps the hardest part for the human brain, allow it to exist without needing immediate certainty.
We hate uncertainty.
We really do. We have to be okay with leaving a question unanswered for a minute while we trace the massive chain of consequence backward.
And mapping out that chain of consequence is staggering.
It's a huge undertaking.
The project traces it like a domino effect, right? Human brains influence individual behavior.
Right.
That behavior influences how we form relationships. Those relationships scale up to build communities.
And communities establish institutions.
Institutions shape entire societies, and those societies ultimately create the future that the next generations will inherit.
It's all connected.
We are forcing consequences onto people who haven't even been born yet, all based on decisions they never had a say in making.
That is the stakes of the puzzle. If you want to understand the future, you cannot just look at the final link in the chain.
You can't just look at the gears of the machine.
Exactly. You have to trace it all the way backward, down to the physiological level, right down to the synapses firing in the brain.
It's mind-blowing.
But this raises an important question, and it's one the project emphasizes deeply to keep our egos in check.
Okay, what is it?
This entire journey into understanding civilization isn't about arriving at one final, perfect answer that solves all of humanity's problems.
There is no silver bullet.
Right. It is an ongoing investigation. In fact, if humanity ever reaches a point where it collectively believes it has all the answers and stops questioning its reality, that is the exact moment we should be most terrified.
Wow.
Knowledge should never close the mind. It should only open it up to better questions.
It is a complete paradigm shift for how we view the world. We spend so much of our lives analyzing politics, economics, and history as if they are these grand external forces happening to us, like the weather.
But they aren't.
No. Examining civilization requires looking inward first. It requires pointing the lens at the very instrument we use to perceive reality, our own nervous system.
Which brings us to the most haunting question posed by the original project.
Okay, let's hear it.
It is a concept that I think should echo in the mind of every single person listening to this deep dive. If the instrument investigating the universe is itself part of the universe, What might the instrument be missing?
Man, it gives you chills. It really does.
It's a powerful thought.
Because it forces a level of humility that is just desperately missing from our public discourse today. We are flawed biological lenses trying to focus on a nearly infinite reality.
We can't see everything.
No, we can't. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to mull over, building directly on what we just uncovered about brain energy and our biological love for habits.
Let's hear it.
We talked about how your brain evolved to conserve energy by automating your reality. It wants to avoid the heavy lifting of critical thought whenever possible.
To save those calories.
Right. So consider this. Think about the last time you were in a heated argument. Think about that warm, comforting, rock-solid feeling of absolute certainty you get in your chest when you just know you are right and the other person is entirely wrong.
We all know that feeling.
We do. But what if that feeling isn't actually a sign that you are objectively correct?
Oh, that's interesting.
What if that powerful, intoxicating feeling of absolute certainty is just a biological signal from your brain, a little chemical pat on the back, letting you know that it has successfully found an excuse to stop thinking and save some calories?
Wow.
It makes you view your own convictions a little differently, doesn't it?
It really reframes the whole concept of being right.
If we ever want to fix the massive, complex machine of human civilization, we are going to have to finally open up the hood and take a long, hard, uncomfortable look at the motor.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the underlying mechanics of who we are. Keep questioning your reality, keep tracing the chain of consequence backward, and we'll see you next time.